Ladies and gents, welcome to Reaction. It took a while, but yeah, third part into every single Warhammer 40k faction re-explained part 1. It's about Emperor of Mankind now. Yeah, we've seen like Chaos Guards, Eldars, because they're connected to Chaos Guards, Drukkaris and everything. So we're gonna talk about Imperium now. This is gonna be like, I'm surprised this is why it's part 1. Because this is gonna take the whole video, I'm gonna guess, and more. Imperium is basically the protagonist of Warhammer 40k, even though as soon as you say that, people are like, what you talking about? It kind of is, right? And it's like really nuanced and really big. But then again, every faction kind of is that, but they're not focused as much. Like, you could make too many books out of, War in the Heavens and like Necrons and everything. But compared to all that, like Imperium books and Horus Heresy books are too many, right? So yeah, it's gonna be awesome. Let's watch this one. Remember, if you like my reaction, don't forget to like and subscribe so I know which type of videos to prioritize more. I like watching Warhammer, as you already know. I've done a lot of Warhammer videos already, a lot of Bricky videos. So yeah, this is an awesome one because Bricky is like one of the very few one who can explain it really well. Even if it's like a 2-hour video, it feels like somehow a summary, which is great. That's how big Warhammer is. 2-hour summary and more because it's part 1. I'm gonna guess part 2 is gonna drop soonish. Who knows? So let's do this one.
Before the fall of the Eldar, Earth, or Terra as it's called, was in ruin. One man looks to put the pieces back together. Where did he come from? We don't know. Some say he was the result of early shamans. Some say he is the final old one who escaped.
Yeah, that's my favorite theory, the old one. Because all old one got completely wrecked. One of the old ones survived, went to this planet with like basically not much intelligence, and just stayed there before intelligence slowly grew up with humans. And bid his time, and now he's the emperor. That's how powerful the old one was, because that's how powerful War of the Heavens were. Necrons are too powerful, old ones are too powerful, right? Catans are really powerful, they're like star killers and all that. So this puts the perspective like, okay, that thing was way too OP in power scale compared to today, and just one old one is enough to become an emperor of mankind. I like that, but then again, I'm pretty sure there are people like, oh, he's too powerful. In the end, he's gonna win, so he has to be better than all of them, so maybe not.
Their species genocide, and those that are smartest know the answer is, it doesn't matter. He revealed himself as the Emperor of Mankind, and he was tasked with the most monumental upheaval of humanity possible. The Eldari's warp fluctuations had turned the golden age of humanity into old night. Interstellar travel cut off? Check. An AI uprising? Check. Brand new psychers popping up and not knowing how to handle their powers? Oh, check. Demonic incursions? Check. Thousands of years this occurred, and now the Emperor of Mankind showed himself to put the pieces back together. Unifying Terra under his rule, the Emperor founded the Imperium of Man and ruled it with an iron fist. He was the supreme leader, and nothing could stand against him. He wished to remove mankind from the yoke of its former failures, and he knew he would be the best leader they could have because he was right. AI banned, religion banned. You did as the Emperor told you, or his Thunder Warriors would put you in your place. That place often being a grave. Now, Terra was thriving, but humanity needed to reclaim its long-lost brethren scattered across the stars. But to do so, he needed those that could build him a fleet truly meant.
I like how in this world, dictatorship, pure dictatorship is like, oh, look at the glory, look at the emperor. But at the same time, in the future, everything's war, everything's decay, everything's fucked up. Living in Imperium is hell, especially for the little people. Like I've seen that looting video, or just like the image of like how to survive in Imperium is just insane. So it's like balance of, oh, look at how cool Emperor of Mankind is, but at the same time, okay, look at the war and death. So dictatorship is not so good.
For the reconquering of the galaxy. And so he turned his attention to the red planet of Mars. Mars and Terra were close allies long before the Unification Wars. Mars was the first world terraformed by humanity and became what would ultimately be the first hive world, an epicenter for industry and technology. The Age of Strife did not treat the Red Planet kindly, however. Mars was cut off from Terra during this time, and the warp storms that ravaged the planet turned it into an absolute nuclear hellscape. Those who were on the surface were turned into your run-of-the-mill mutant if they even survived the bombings they inflicted on themselves, but others were lucky enough to escape beneath the red sands in powerful fallout shelters. These became their generational habitats, but this resulted in extreme reliance on technology and those who could use it. They began to view the technology keeping them alive less as a technological advancement and more of a divine intervention, with those skilled in it as priests.
Okay, am I stupid? Because I didn't know this. So, Mechanicus are just humans that terraform Mars and then just got cut off and now they're Mechanicus. I didn't know that. I know people are like, how stupid are you? How do you know all this but not this? I don't know, it just somehow slipped by me. Alright, so it kind of makes sense. Mechanicus is part of Imperium and all that shit. Because I assume like Mechanicus is some different aliens. Like how Tau are, right? Like different aliens, but not part of humanity. They're humans. Right? I get that right? Or did I miss it? No, yeah. I'm pretty sure that's the case.
Martians began to worship the power of the machine, and this resulted in the formation of the cult Mechanicus, the belief in a holy trinity known as the Three-in-One. The machine god, serving as the spirit who gave rise to all technologies known, the motive force, the deity that gives all life its ability to live, and the Omnissiah, a physical manifestation of the machine god itself. This belief began to manifest in them physically as well. What were once humans began to really mess around with the character creator options, and this tech obsession made them view instances of flesh to be weak and spend their lives removing what makes them human. And
same thing that creeps me out in other games like Cyberpunk, and everyone like, oh, should we augment it? Like, yeah, why like, he's just powerful just as he is type of shit. Like, I don't know why I have a problem with that. Like, oh, why the cut off his hand and put it mechanical? No, cut off his eye, no. Same thing with like Avowed. What is the facial fungus feature we like? Not the one where if you can see fungus. Why did they have to do that, man? Every time they just cut off to the face, like, what the fuck? It's like after The Last of Us and all that shit. How are people gonna be okay with that? Like, how after seeing that ant thing, right? That's where this fungus thing comes from. Like, what happens to those ants? How they become like mindless zombies? What am I supposed to think with the fungus thing? Yeah. I don't know, like, I always get creeped out by this.
Replacing it with mechanical augments. Robotic limbs, glowing eyes, mechadendrite arms. What was once a mass of flesh now looks like the back of a router. And the oldest members of the Mechanicus no longer even look slightly human. In addition to this, cloaked over all
connection problem. Shut off the router and start it up again. There you go. That's how you start up Mechanicus.
All of their mechanical appendages are robes that reflect the color of their homeworld, the red robes of the Mechanicus. The Cult Mechanicum, now the Adeptus Mechanicus, create a fascinating combination of cultures all birthed into one. Basically, techno-zealot monks. Organic life is the machine god's greatest accomplishment within the scope of the great work. All praise he who is three in one. By giving us life within an organic shell, he presents us with the means and opportunity to improve upon physicality, as is his divine plan. He grants us complex weakness so we might learn metallic strength and ascend to his level of machinic perfection. The Emperor's arrival to Mars was very much a walking in with the pizzas while the room is on fire moment, but to the Mechanicum, they saw his arrival as confirmation of their belief. They took one look at the glowing golden entity that showed up on their doorstep and were like, that's him. That's the guy right there, and they immediately accepted him as the Omnissiah. Obviously, showing up and being called Machine Jesus shortly after wiping out all instances of non-Machine Jesus a little bit beforehand is an instance of capital H heresy, but the Emperor saw the bigger picture. Were they strange with how they...
There was no such thing as heresy when Emperor was still walking around. He didn't like religion and all that shit. All these heresy shit all this heresy shit started after the uh, Horus heresy, right? After he sat on the chair and everybody become these zealots. So at the time, like I can just imagine Emperor like, oh, our Omnissiah is here, and he's like, oh, god damn it, why can't I have one functional, reliable people to make shit for me? Like, yeah, okay, fine, I'm the Omnissiah. Just make shit for me.
Rubbed unguents on themselves, burned incense, and prayed to machines for them to work? Sure, but that's a lot of production right there. So the Emperor devised the Treaty of Olympus Mons, a unifying agreement between Terra and Mars, and this union would be permanently etched into the Aquila of the Imperium as the two-headed eagle. One head for Terra, and the other for Mars. The forces of the Emperor would be supplied with all the technology and weapons they needed to reunite the scattered remnants of humanity under one banner, and the Mechanicum of Mars would be able to keep doing what they were doing religiously and scientifically so long as they kept up their tithes. This tithe meant total quality control over all technology in the Imperium. Is it a big spaceship? AdMech take care of that. Tanks? AdMech take care of that. The literal bullets in a gun? You guessed it. But unlike the factories of today, the forge worlds of Mars and the creations of the Mechanicum are a bit of a different experience.
Yeah, that James Bond scene, right? Like every James Bond has like, oh, go talk to the queue, and they just walk inside. Oh, here's the gun. This is this is the tech. I'm imagining similar shit. Welcome to Imperium. By the way, let's go to Mars. And okay, here's the gun cabinet, and there's like mechanicus just walking around and showing all this shit. All that. These are armory. That's what this is. Yeah.
Altogether. Instead of a factory on a random given world, the entirety of the planet's surface is dedicated to manufacturing. But that's a little tricky, isn't it? Considering that the usage of silica animus, or AI, is a big no-no, and basically the largest affront to their divine machine god possible. Fortunately,
I don't get this. This Warhammer is like multi-decade old. There was no even concept of it. Like, yeah, okay, there some concept of AI because people have like imagination, but there was no like computers were not progressing at a level they can even think of how this is going to work, right? It's not like today. So every single time there is like case like this, we're like, oh, AI is banned because like they always go out of hand. There is always that element like AI will overpower us, right? Even like Stephen Hawking before he died, like he's like, okay, AI is gonna be around doing. And there is a case for that if you psychologically think about it. But why is that every time? Even in Mass Effect, right? Mass Effect trilogy, AI is banned. And there are certain missions where there is a real AI. But it's like really cool. Like every lore is like, oh, AI is banned. Because they always end up like, oh, AI is going to screw us.
a really neat alternative that they've come up with, and that's called a servitor. Incredible devices that can do anything from manufacturing, maintenance, basic door operation, even just float around like a helpful little drone. It's an extremely easy process too. All you need to do is take a human who is dying or preferably an enemy of the state, most likely that one, and lobotomize them, and then reprogram their brains to do exactly what they tell you. They even got little baby versions of them. Yay! So now...
So that has a small human... Oh, no. Yeah, there are two of them, right? Cervicus or whatever. And the second one is... I remember Lutin video. Oh my god. The more you feel it, the more you think it, is just like complete depression.
You can rest easy knowing that the entirety of the Imperium, because they outlaw AI and learning new tech is heresy, is run on lobotomized slaves. Whether they deserve it or not is unimportant, and whether they can still keep their consciousness trapped in their own minds is another thing entirely.
Is showing.
An excerpt.
Dark Tide. They didn't need to add that. That was evil move to add that dialogue because that hurt when I first saw it. That fucking hurt. This is insane, man. Oh, it's grim dark world. This is like epitome of it. Like this tells you like what a grim dark world it is.
From the servitor creation factories. Naked human beings were standing in a switch-packed line between high fences. The manufactorum produced servitors, but it was more akin to an abattoir than a workshop. Every surface was easily cleanable. Servitors with spray units surgically attached to their backs prowled about, hosing filth from slit drains set into the perfectly smooth, slanted floors. As the line slowly advanced, the people were passed through various scanning devices, most of them mounted in ugly, functional arches that let out a constant series of acceptance chimes. Occasionally, one would let out an angry blare, and the indicator lumens would flash red. The rejected person was then swallowed up by a trapdoor opening beneath their feet. From these pits wafted a hideous stench and the grinding sounds of industrial mincers. One rejected man grabbed onto the lip and hung there, arms and hands bloodied, shouting a stream of defiant profanities. Guards lined the grating either side of him and shocked him until he fell. The adepts wouldn't even waste bullets on these people. The trapdoor flipped up, and the next terrified person was ushered forward. Violet metal arms snatched them up and spread-eagled them in the air, and a servitor shearer shaved them all over. At another, they were subjected to a high-pressure counterseptic wash whose chemical stink made me choke from 100 feet away. More scanners, more rejects winnowed out. Machines forcibly dressed them in a heavy rubberized garment common to all monotask servitors. These were saggy on them, all one size, until another process force-shrank them to fit their bodies where metal cuffs, sockets, and collars bit into vulnerable flesh. The last few prayers gave way to screams at that point, and even the most stoic shouted in pain. They were ushered over a floor buzzing with power that made them shriek with every footstep. "What's that for?" I asked. "Follicular inhibitor, to stop their hair from growing," he said. Freaking sweet, Lois! As for their scientific pursuits, the Mechanicum believe in the preservation.
What do you think? If Hitler survived and somehow they won, would they have done this shit? Because I feel like they would have. Like they were already like measuring your head and everything. Oh, I'm guessing some of this shit kind of comes from that. This is just horrifying, man. A lot of things kind of, when I think about it, like what Emperor believes in or what he believed when he was alive, not whatever you mean, right? In 31st century, 31st millennium, sorry. It feels very weird that this would be allowed, right? Under him, like making humans into this kind of like object and just like, I don't even know, like this complete dark and, feeling emotionless type of thing. Like this is just insane to me. Like some of the things you would think like it's like, canceling each other out or something. How Emperor believes in a lot of things. I don't know, man.
Of knowledge above all, and the quest to expand it. However, as opposed to just innovating and inventing on their own with their vast technological know-how, they believe that it is a form of tech heresy. You see, because of their religious viewpoints on technology itself, they believe that the instruction booklet itself is just as holy as the Lego set it builds, and to innovate on that without the proper written knowledge is to go against the divine word of the machine god itself. All knowledge is already in the universe. You simply need to rediscovering it and attempting to invent something to improve upon divinity is very heretical. Prior to the Age of Strife, humanity was able to populate the stars with devices known as Standard Template Constructs, or STCs. These devices were, as far as we know, supercomputers with the ability to pull up and detail how to create literally anything a startup colony would need. Essentially, they were devices with the entirety of human technological know-how so that you could make a home away from home. The Mechanicum will not make anything without an STC. Quite literally nothing, because this is the knowledge they seek, and that.
Yeah, I didn't know that one. So that is kind of insane to me. So this kind of holds them back. So all the shit we hear like Imperium has and like Mechanicus has, and like this doesn't even compare to what they had before the Horus Heresy, before 31st millennium. Maybe because they don't want to do more than that, because they attach religion to it, right? Like there's many religion who talks about science and like mathematics as evil, right? In real world, in our world, right? Like, so mathematics and science is evil, so that kind of cut off any scientific advancement, right? So this is kind of similar to that. Oh, information, everything's out there, you just need to discover it, but you can't improve on it. That's insult to God. Like, there you go, you're not going to be able to innovate anything, but only what people have found in the past. So if you find something of the past, okay, we can make this do. Should we put our brain together and make something better? Oh, that's heresy.
That knowledge is divine. One time, scouts of the Imperial Guard found a functioning STC that provided the schematics on a knife that happened to be a bit lighter and a bit sharper than most other knives. These knives were adopted by 30 Space Marine chapters and were one of the
Thank you for the Skyrim there. I spend hours of my life into this shit. Making daggers, improving, enchanting, making a business out of it just so I can become rich. After I learned alchemy makes me more richer. But this shit is like I spent way too much time into this one.
most advanced discoveries of the century. This discovery was so significant that they were each awarded a planet for finding this. A planet for a machine that taught them how to make knives. Due to their religious organization, you can probably guess the Mechanicum are organized in a feudal structure with the highest individuals in power being a part of the priesthood. Cream of the crop being the fabricator general of Mars itself, who serves as a high lord of Terra, but also oversees the entirety of the Mechanicum below. Below them are tech priests that oversee the cult for the quest of knowledge and other more straightforward theocracy. Forge worlds tend to operate slightly more independently, what can cause some power struggles within the Mechanicum, because, you know, despite them all being weird robots, they love being given praise. And despite being the manufacturing end of the Imperium, they do actually have their own military forces. They have the Skitarii Private Army and all their various 1920s Martian-style mechanisms like Doom Crawlers, Castellan robots, and of course, the Titan Legions, because nothing is cooler than a robot that towers over buildings. Ultimately, their very dogmatic view on technology as a whole has resulted in
What do you have that you're gonna fight us with? You have a very small army. You rely on Imperium to help you. What do you have? Yeah, we have Titan, and just like Titan rises up, blocks the sun. And like, yeah, that seems about right.
any innovation becoming absent, thus causing the Imperium to stagnate as a whole. The lack of ambition to create anything new and the wholesale murder of anyone who even tries leads to things becoming derelict. I grow weary of this flesh I was born into, strangely disgusted by its nature. I crave only the cold, clean certainty of steel and silicon, that I might become one with the blessed machine. I do not expect you to understand, you who cling to your flesh as if it were immortal, seeking only to preserve it, to protect it. One day you will see the folly of your ways, and then no doubt you will come begging to my order to preserve you. After the groundwork had
Okay, imagine if Mechanicus and Necron met and talked. Necron's like, our souls were took from us. We want that back. We don't want to be this kind of like mindless machine. And Mechanicus like, we want to be nothing but machine. And Necron's like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
been set unification-wise, it was time to start getting things together for the Emperor's great crusade across the stars to bring humanity under one banner. The Thunder Warriors were a perfect fighting force for unifying Terra and Luna, but the galaxy was a whole different thing.
Bullshit,
you see,
bruh.
these warriors weren't soldiers in the eyes of the Emperor. They were tools, extremely blunt tools used for the fast conquest of Terra.
Is that true? Because feeling I get like, okay, he did care for them, but they had to go type of shit. I mean, he did have like, oh, I'm the emperor now to make hard decisions, but I felt like he cared. He wasn't just like, oh, they were just tools, right? I don't know.
As the Emperor was concerned, the tools you use at home aren't the same ones you take on a road trip. So the Emperor rid himself of his tools in the exact manner you think he did, and he went forward to crafting a brand new tool. One more mobile, more efficient, and ready for his next era of conquest. They shall be my finest warriors, these men who give of themselves to me. Like clay, I shall mold them, and in the furnace of war forge them. They will be of iron will and steely muscle. In great armor shall I clad them, and with the mightiest guns will they be armed. They will be untouched by plague or disease. No sickness will blight them. They will have tactics, strategies, and machines so that no foe can best them in battle.
Nothing will go wrong. They'll be perfect. I'm sure nothing will happen.
My bulwark against the terror. They are the defenders of humanity. They are my soul. And they shall know no fear. The vastness of the Milky Way galaxy meant that the Emperor needed assistance bringing everyone back to the fold. And who better to do this than himself? But since the technology to be in many places at once does not exist anymore, the Emperor decided that it was time to become a dad, the same way Geppetto did, and with far less care. It is not my son, Archon. None of them are. They are warlords, generals, tools bred to serve a purpose, just as legions were bred to serve a purpose. What a dad. The Primarch Project was started to create charismatic and unique leaders in the Imperial military. The diversity of these eventual leaders meant that each one could be specialized for certain circumstances across the galaxy. Depending on the type of conflict, one leader might be better than the other. So instead of forcing one leader to acclimate to a situation directly, it would be better to send a specialized leader and force to handle it. In order to do this, the Emperor used his genetic know-how.
Okay, that sounds like all Primarchs had their own plus point, and they all were basically equal. It's because of certain they were better at certain things compared to others, so they were all equal. But isn't it true, like some of them were just like point blank better than the other? Like Horus was Horus, right? Like there's a reason why he was like battle master, whatever the fuck that was. Sanguinius being the perfect, literally the perfect thing, isn't he just better than the other? It's just point blank. Like, I don't know, man.
How and maybe a little bit of that forbidden stuff to create these genetically perfect gene fathers that had the ability to serve as his analog directly and also serve as the leaders of the respective Space Marine legions. All 18, that's right, all 19 of his sons were meant to be directly molded by the Emperor himself despite their genetic differences, and they go as follows in order. Lionel Johnson, Fulgrim, Percherabo, Jagatai Khan, Lehman Russ, Rogel Dorn, Conrad Kurz, Sanguinius, Ferris Manus, Angron, Robute Gilliman, Mortarion, Magnus the Red, Horus Lupercal, Lorgar Aurelian, Vulcan, Corvus Corax, and Alfarius and Omegon. His sons, finalized and crafted to be the warriors he needed them to be, were complete. But he may have decided to do a bit of dabbling with things he shouldn't have, and paid a price. Before the Primarchs were ready to go, an intervention by the gods of chaos prevented his plan from being completed as intended. Though the sources vary, the ultimate result of the Chaos God intervention was that all of the Emperor's tools were scattered throughout the galaxy at unknown places and times. Each one of his sons ended up in a completely different world, and instead of being able to directly influence their upbringing, these children were instead forced to experience the unique nature of their respective homeworlds. Some had a great time and lived in general luxury. Others, not so much. Despite his closest advisor, Malkador the Sigillite, saying, "All right, Chief, let's try this one again," the Emperor sensed each of his sons were still very much alive. And one of the primary objectives of the Great Crusade shifted to reclaiming each of his sons so they could take command.
Let's be honest, if he had done that, like, okay, fuck it, let's redo it, and made more Primarchs, the abandoned Primarchs would have come back to like bite him in the ass. Like, how could you abandon us type of shit? Like, you wouldn't need a Horus heresy after that. Like, they wouldn't need to be corrupted. They would already be like, abandoned, right? So corrupted in that way. That would have been completely different, I guess.
Of their specific Space Marine legions and carry out his will. These original Space Marine legions that were created alongside their Primarchs go in order: the Dark Angels, Emperor's Children, Iron Warriors, White Scars, Space Wolves, Imperial Fists, Night Lords, Blood Angels, Iron Hands, World Eaters, Ultramarines, Death Guard, Thousand Sons, Luna Wolves, eventually Sons of Horus, the Word Bearers, Salamanders, Raven Guard, and the Alpha Legion. Space Marines, unlike their gene fathers, the Primarchs are not made in a vat. There is a process to recruit more members from humanity itself, which seems a bit strange considering how massive a Space Marine is compared to a normal man, but don't forget, the Emperor is really good with genetics. Less good with anesthetic, however. These prospects are recruited across humanity from various reasons and methods, and are generally killed during that process. But sometimes they aren't, and they are able to go through more and more of the actual training to assess certain traits that are important and relevant to being a Space Marine. Most of the time, the common factor is a pure, unrelenting willingness to kill the enemies of the Imperium. After going through psychological screening, the prospect, now called a neophyte, goes under the knife to become a Space Marine. And here is a quick list of all the cool new stuff they get genuinely shoved into their bodies. A secondary heart, an organ that makes your bones grow, an organ that makes your muscles big, an implant that makes your blood stronger, a little organ that turns your white blood cells into super white blood cells, a brain implant that allows you to sleep while being awake, a pre-stomach that allows you to digest literally anything, a spinal implant that allows you to absorb the genetic memories of what you eat, bigger and better lungs that can let you breathe underwater, an implant that gives you stronger eyes, new ears that keep you from being dizzy, a brain implant that lets you go into suspended animation if you're in a bad shape, skin that acts like transition glass.
So a Space Marine could be like acting dying, even though it's not dead. It's just in hibernation, like certain animal. This is insane. Like certain bugs, not just animal. Yeah, and grow bones. Like, won't that cause issues with height? You get injury, it heals, but it heals like grows more, so like you have longer limbs than otherwise. So your height constantly changes. Like, that's insane.
I almost got it in one take. A brand new kidney, the ability to taste the air and find enemies like a bloodhound, a special coating on your skin that allows you to be protected in space, the ability to spit acid, a gland that allows you to absorb the unique genetic makeup from the gene seed in the first place, and a straight up carapace that allows the Space Marine to interface with their power armor directly. Quite often, these are put inside of you at dubious levels of mental alertness and dubious levels of anesthetic. After a more generalized indoctrination into the faith of the Imperium and a bit more training and other important manners, they can finally be welcomed as a fully fledged Space Marine. A Space Marine is quite literally a walking tank that is armed to the teeth. Two of the more iconic weapons held by a Space Marine are their bolt gun, which fires explosive shells the size of soda cans, and a chain sword, which is the Space Marine is clad in a colorful carapace known as power armor, crafted from extremely heavy and durable ceramite. The power armor of a Space Marine protects him from any terrors he may face, be it the void of space itself to an inhospitable atmosphere. This armor, combined almost biologically with an already massive physique, makes the Space Marine an almost unstoppable fighting force.
Basically, power armor from Fallout 4. That's what this shit is.
And hell, if the armor doesn't protect them enough, they can always become a walking coffin like the dreadnoughts of the chapters are. What truly adds to it all, however, is the sheer difference in some of them. While a Space Marine in its own right is an indoctrinated freight train on legs, how they act can be quite different from chapter to chapter. The gene seed of a Primarch is not just helping them become big and strong, but allows them to gain certain traits from their forefathers. Everything from how they think to even slightly adjusting their physical appearance once it's been implanted, the gene seed can be the personality of an entire Space Marine. Take the Salamanders, for example. Salamanders have a predisposition to fire as a whole, and tend to be extremely large due to the size of their Primarch, Vulcan, and his enormous stature. Whereas someone like Sanguinius, Primarch of the Blood Angels, share more vampiric features and more angel-like qualities. A gene seed is not just aspects of the Primarchs, but they are also flaws too. Magnus the Red and his 1,000 Sons underwent something known as the Flesh Change, a horrifying mutation that, while it made them strong psychers, would affect their bodies so terribly that they would mutate away from humanity. Where other factions have inspiration for their culture from our real world, like the feudal Japanese of the Eldar or Egyptian style the Necrons, each Space Marine chapter themselves carry an inspiration. The White Scars are motorcycle riding Mongolian fighters. The Space Wolves are Norse Vikings. The Dark Angels are Knights of the Round Table, and so on. This moves into their fighting style, and truthfully, there is no end to the characters and options when it comes to the Space Marines. Space Marines are the main symbol you see, and well, many.
I like how this started as just a trait or different trait to play on the tabletop. Like, you have these different pros and cons of these different Space Marine chapters. Why? Because it's fun, it's tabletop. Why would all they be same? and it just melted into this perfect lore. Like, yeah, that makes sense and makes it awesome as a lore. Like, they just have the same trait of their Primarchs, pros and cons with it, and they've effected in a way that they think like that, they behave like that. That's awesome.
Any of them can be simply indoctrinated warriors who only care about conflict and can be quite boring. Then you meet Dante, or Bjorn, or Argel Tal, or Karn, or Lucius, or Erebus. And then you discover the wealth of these characters and tools of war you can have. For 1100 years, I have fought and I have seen the darkness in our galaxy. I have seen the vileness of the alien and the heresy of the mutant. I have witnessed the sin of possession, and I have seen all the evil that the galaxy harbors, and I have slain all whose presence defiles the Emperor. I have seen what you will see. I have fought what you must fight, and I have slain what you must slay. So fear not and be proud, for we are the sons of Sanguinius, the protectors of mankind. We are indeed the angels of death. Despite being the poster
You know what is more surprising? That after 1100 years, he didn't succumb to depression. How many people you gonna kill for the Emperor before more rise up? When's that's gonna end? You done everything in your life that you can think of, and okay, by the way, there's 1,000 years left now. After this is the question, right? Everybody's like, oh, we're gonna live longer. One day we'll never die. Okay, I'm sure that's just gonna end in massive depression. Now what? Right? So after 1100 years, you have to kill this heretic. Yeah, I know, I've been doing that. It's by now it's just motions, right? You wake up, you brush your teeth, and you do this.
children for Warhammer 40k as a whole, the presence of a Space Marine is a rare sight for the countless trillions of humans across the galaxy. Seeing one of these monstrosities is like seeing something akin to an angel sent by the Emperor himself. These angels of death are the essential fighting force to bring humanity back under the unified banner of the Imperium. Yet ultimately, the Space Marines are individuals torn from their families and conscripted to genetic modification and lifelong service for the dying Imperium. And though they are held in an almost holy light, most believe they are above and beyond the people they are designed to serve. Once designed as the protectors of humanity, they seldom view humanity as something worth saving, to the extent that it is a tiny, minute.
Yeah, that just makes sense, right? Okay. Yeah, I mean there is that. I'm sure they're not gonna see just walking everyday humans and they're like, oh, I'm here to serve them. Of course not. They're there to serve the Emperor, but humans are Emperor, so it's objects of humans. That's the properties of Emperor. That's what it is. That's what humans are, and they're protecting them. That's the way, right? They don't have to think like that. Kind of makes sense.
Rarity, though not unheard of, for a Space Marine to put a normal citizen above them in any way. For most Space Marines and even their Primarchs, they are only here to do a job. They are there to kill the enemies of humanity, and I would be remiss if I didn't add at least one more of my favorite quotes to the tail end of this section. "The time for speeches is done," said Rogel Dorn. "The first great test is here. My order to you all is simple, yet heed it well, and exert yourselves to see it done. They are coming. Kill them all." While the Space Marines are the spearhead of the Imperium's Great Crusade and also a major player in its warfare, there is a significant amount of importance that must be taken on their transport. What sci-fi universe would be complete without its navy? When you think of the navy or ships on the open sea, you think of something that is sleek, something mobile, and something pretty big. For perspective, the longest self-propelled ship in history was the TTC-Wise Giant, an oil tanker that was about 458 meters long or over about 1,500 feet. This right here is child's play in the world of 40k ships. A ship that is considered to be an escort vessel in the Imperium is about 3 times the size of a Sea-Wise Giant, and the size of the ships only go up from there. Your most common ships are the cruisers. The light cruiser tends to average at about 2 kilometers long, or just over a...
I'm surprised it's just 3 times and not 30 times, because space is big, way too big than oceans, and the scale of Imperium is insane compared to the humans. It would make sense the ship be that insane. Look at the Titan, how insane a Titan is, right? So it kind of makes sense. And isn't it great, how USA relies on its navy to be a power, because Most of the US's fight is like overseas and water is involved, so Navy. US needs a powerful Navy to do something, and Marines being Marines. This is kind of similar, like, okay, we're not fighting anything on Terra itself. We're fighting something in space, so Navy, Marines, why not Space Marines?
Mile in length, where the Dictator class cruisers can be over 3 kilometers or 2 miles in length. The largest ships are your battleships, and they are tremendous. We're talking 5-mile long, half a mile high monstrosities that look like gigantic Gothic cathedrals and filled to the brim with weaponry. And not only are they filled with weapons, but they are also jam-packed with crewmen. Battleships tend to, on average, carry a crew between several thousand to several million, and they need
I like how people made these ridiculous structures, scientific marvels, and they're like, we still need to shape it into eagle, and like we have to give it eagle's wing. What is the purpose of that? I don't know. Look cool. What are you, nerd? Yeah, not everything needs to be like just for function. In real world, the more and more things advances, the more and more it becomes like fluid in shape. Like it has to serve a purpose. If it's a rocket, it needs to be aerodynamic and nothing else. If it's something else, like even the phones are becoming more and more like sleek, right? There's no need for design, make it functional. Shape should be functional. Why add any extra shit on it that it doesn't need? That's not the case here. Let's just put all the ornaments and everything into this ridiculous 5-mile long ship.
need every single one of those members because we don't have advanced technology for other things to pilot themselves or control themselves in a meaningful way because there's no AI. A lot of this stuff has to be done manually. Even the reloading of those giant batteries is a form of manual labor. And of course, generally speaking, gliding through the stars is a very slow way to do things. And
I mean, it's not AI. If a script is not really AI, so you can have like auto loaders. That's not really AI. I mean, come on. It's just a script. How is that AI? It doesn't need to think or do any AI things or do, calculation, right? Even the AI, not true AI, but AI that we have today is AI because it can do multiple functions that it is not assigned to. Like, it's not told to do specific thing, right? But it's just given this kind of like a whole genre of things, like you're supposed to do this. So if you give it something that it's not supposed to and still thinks it because it's still part of the parameters, that's AI, right? That's how Google AI and ChatGPT and everything works. While a script is very specific. These are the numbers, these are the things, these are the calculation you're supposed to do, and this is how autoloader is going to work. That's not AI, right? If you ask it something else, the autoloader is not going to answer something else. Its whole job is to be an autoloader. It's a script. Right, world has had that for a long time in our time, right? Before AI even became a thing, so they can still have that.
let's be honest, there can't be a science fiction setting without some form of hyperspace travel. This form of travel in 40k is less like going to Plaid in Spaceballs and more like going into Davy Jones' zipper dimension in SpongeBob.
Oh, now what? I suppose you're gonna show me. Oh, gee, that's very nice. Oh, what is this? Some kind of magic act?
This is because it utilizes the immaterial warp to do so. Warp travel is handled by a navigator, which is an abhuman. It's a mutated human, don't worry about it. And they have a gene that gives them a third eye and the ability to help steer the ship through the warp, which, as we know, is hell itself and unreality. Now, this might sound exceptionally dangerous, and that's because it is. Now, the ship does have protection in the form of a Geller field, though.
I like how they you can explain it just the way how the movie Inception explains it, and you're like, what the fuck was that? Watch movie multiple times and you're still confused. That's what the warp is. I can only imagine Leonardo DiCaprio. Yeah, DiCaprio. Basically explaining to how warp works, and you're just like, you're still confused in the end.
Originally, I assumed the Geller field is what you think it is, a large force field stopping all manner of horrible things, like demons from the warp tearing apart your ship. How wrong I was, though. So space travel through the warp basically involves riding on the Sea of Souls. Hell is real and you can surf on it. So you allow the current to carry you and the navigator to direct. But how can a current of souls and unreality carry you when it doesn't obey the laws of physics, time, or, again, reality? What a Geller field is not a force field. but a comatose Imperial psyker dreaming of reality. It is not a bubble. It is a force of reality being projected by mutant Sleeping Beauty to counteract the unreality of the warp that you can then surf on.
Oh, so it creates this kind of a surfboard in a way. That makes sense, right? Like, what is a warp? Warp is all your thoughts and things like materialize in a way. So everything you think, everything you do is kind of like in the warp, right? So a psyker can basically use that and dream and create this kind of a wave that you can like surf on in a way. Makes sense.
This, of course, is not a foolproof method of travel, and Geller fields can and do collapse fairly regularly. Being subjected to the warp itself without this Geller field is a terrifying prospect. In the best case scenario, your ship will be torn to shreds, but there are countless instances of ships being thrown out of the warp randomly throughout time itself.
Yeah, basically, like, you know, the saying, like, what if we went to another universe? Yeah, if the laws of physics are even slightly altered, you would explode. Your molecules would explode or some shit like that. I'm imagining the same thing in the warp. Like, if you fuck it up, it's a warp. It's immaterial. Material shouldn't be inside of it. So, yeah, that's gonna cause wacky shit, like, who knows what. Everything might, like he said, explode or do, I don't know. Some of them might be stuck in some kind of a time loop, even still. Living this kind of like a Groundhog Day, hell. That's insane.
You leave for a 2-day mission and you come back 90 years in the past. Maybe you feel like you're lost in the warp for a century and it's only been 45 minutes. And that is only if the waves of souls don't rip your ship apart or have demons arrive on it to do unspeakable things to the crew. The Imperial Navy is an astronomically powerful force.
Imagine if you accidentally drop into Khan's world, right? What is it, like Khan's realm? Khan is like, what the fuck is even there? You just look up like, you just see this energy and you know that's not right.
Force for the Imperium, because the sheer volume of ships and guns on those ships create firepower that can sunder planets. This is all juxtaposed with the sheer backwater nature of these ships. While they are manned by crews of zealots, they are also operated with such a backwater tech, it completely confuses the reader. You see the long batteries of portside cannons that the ship has, and remember that AI is heresy in this world, and that all the mechanics are utilized by lobotomized slaves. So how do they load these? Well, they have gun gangs, massive gangs of hundreds of people manually loading these cannons. These are genuine gun loader.
Why can't I consume one bit of lore from Imperium and not be depressed? Oh, look at this awesome tech. It has some depressing shit behind it. Oh, look at, oh, by the way, there's a human suffering behind it. Look at this shit. It's like, those Pirates movie. Where people just load, right? Like the Pirates of Caribbean shit, but at that scale. What the fuck?
Gangs that get into gang wars and squabbles. On the ship's bridge, you may find the captain himself hardwired directly into the ship's chair permanently to control it the best they can. Giant screens of hololith data fill the room, and sensors across the ship are just as likely to tell you information as a serf running up to you with a scroll of parchment is. You reach to a microphone to shout orders down a hallway as paper readouts tell you information of the enemy, and holy sigils and candlelit incense burners gleam your next move. While the
logistics are just insane, but I also think it's unrealistic. Shit like this would work at a certain scale, but the scale we're talking about, the lag of like just human error and thought and communication would be too insane. Like, how would that even work? That can't be efficient.
Is not a specific faction of the Imperium in the same sense and format of this video. It is what.
Why is he using that font? What was that? Shit, sorry, never mind.
In the same sense and format of this video, it is what shepherds around the entirety of its armed forces. Every Space Marine Primarch had a flagship, and every strike cruiser and battle barge has a story to tell. But if there is a single thing that the Shield of the Navy does the best, it is to help support and supply the monumental forces of the Imperium. The hammer of the Emperor himself, the uncountable men and women of the...
I was about to say that Astra Militarum. Isn't that said like they are so many? As soon as they approach, it will feel like a earthquake is coming, and you see this horizon filled with darkness because that's how many they are, trillions. So the logistic of that, like just loading them up on the ship, like
I don't care if these things have adapted to resist our las guns. If we can't kill them with our rifles, then we'll kill them with heavy bolters. And if we can't kill them with heavy weapons, we'll use grenades. And if grenades don't work, then we'll fight them with our swords and our knives and our bare hands. We'll drown them in our blood. That's what it means to be a soldier of the Imperial Guard. Now follow me. Charge! There is no better...
That is so true, but not with a badass element, depressing element. That is, yeah, the cannon fodder. That's what's gonna happen.
Symbol of the might of the Imperium itself than the Astra Militarum, or as it is commonly known, the Imperial Guard. Though the Space Marines take the glory and stand as the visual representation of the Imperium, their numbers are dramatically thin and specialized in comparison. To reclaim 1,000,000 worlds, you need a countless number of troops willing to fight and die for your cause. The Imperial Guard represents the Imperial truth made manifest.
Space Marines are the actors of the movie. Well, Astra Militarum is literally the cast that you have this numbering in the end credits that you don't read. That's what it is. All the writers, all the producers, all the people in between, cameramen and God knows screen players or whatever.
Fest. Every year, the worlds of the Imperium pay a tithe in the form of soldiers to fight the good fight of the Emperor, and this number is impossible to pin down. Even saying billions would be a dramatic understatement. The sheer volume of soldiers serves as the fundamental backbone of the Imperium. 99.9% of battles fought by the Imperium are fought by the sundering might of the Imperial Guard. With the knowledge that the Space Marines are essentially sentient tanks, what do the members of the Imperial Guard have? If they're the might of the Emperor himself, are they not suited up in a similar way? No, not really. No fancy suits, no biological enhancements, and basically no expectation to...
Yeah, because that's impossible. How the fuck are they gonna equip these trillions of people into this kind of a fucking suit and everything? No, you get what you get. Like, I don't know, like, you're not special. This is why I want a major video game. Major. I'm not talking about all the games that we had. That's fine. I'm talking about Elder Scrolls, Fallout, GTA 5 level of game with a massive lore. There is already lore. A massive world, open world with a proper story and side quest where you begin as Astra Militarum, nobody, where you're treated as nobody and somehow rise the rank. Maybe that's not lore accurate because that shit doesn't happen, but it would be really fun to play it like that.
Live. Once a regiment of guard are activated, they are sent directly into battle with almost no expectations that they will survive. This is because, despite their training, their incredibly powerful armor, and extremely strong weapons that would crush any army of the modern day, they are so hopelessly outmatched to the things they will face. Sending a member of the guard is throwing a rock at a nuclear bomb. However, where they lack in advancement, they make up for in sheer numbers, and their overwhelming force can be the difference maker in...
I guess this is why orcs love Imperium, because they love to fight and there's too many things to fight and not equal things. Oh, here comes a soldier. Orcs like, I'm not supposed to fight that, and just like squash. And another one comes, squash. Before like 100 comes, oh, okay, that's how we fight.
Any deployment they face. Quantity is a quality all its own. If they do happen to survive, they will be sent to the next battle, and so on. Seldom do members of the
Yeah, you can have the best UFC fighter in the world. You can have, John Jones or Brock Lesnar or whatever you can think of, the ridiculous human being, 300-pound ridiculous human being. And you can have just like 3 average people attacking them. Chances are 3 people will overpower that guy, because numbers are numbers in the end. Let's be honest, this is not a movie. 3 people can overpower anyone. In a fight, that is unfair. That's the shit with this, like, okay, oh, you're orc, you're Tyranid, great, but there's 100 soldiers and there are like millions behind it. Like, what you gonna do?
Astra Militarum get old or retire, and those that do are truly to be feared. There's an old saying that the average lifespan of a guardsman is about 15 hours from deployment, and considering the sheer number of guardsmen out there in any given battle, that number is probably accurate. When several million of your pool of guardsmen die within the first few hours of combat because the orcs threw a moon at you, it can really screw the numbers. The soldiers of the Guard are conscripted and trained on an incredible number of worlds in the Imperium, and these worlds can impact their training and their combat style directly. The most famous visually are the Cadian shock troops. But other notable Guard factions include the gas mask clad Death Corps of Krieg, the Rambo level.
Greeks are so different. I love it, right? With the gas mask sound, and it's like, oh, okay, shit's about to go down. Every other like extra militant's like, yeah, shit's about to go down now.
Level of Catachan jungle fighters and the iron-willed Mordian Iron Guard. This also helps them specialize against individual types of enemies. The Indigan Prefects are a special guard regiment that came from a planet whose planetary governor, the leader of the planet, thought it was fun to collect exotic animals, which then crossbreed and then became the giant freight train-sized monsters destroying the planet. So the Indigan Prefects are specialized for big monsters. Hello, Tyranids. One particularly interesting officer in the Guard is the enforcement officer known as the Commissar, and they are one of the more visually striking members of a regiment. These are specialized Imperial officers and act as morale officers. But instead of singing songs to the troops and providing hot meals, the Commissars are there to make sure that the members of the regiment continue to fight to the bitter end. If a soldier
It's threats, so you better get in line or you're gonna get shot. That's their job.
does not meet the standards of the Commissar, the solution is simple. There are trillions of other soldiers out there. We don't really need you. Combat fatigue? Headshot. Concerns about the conflict? Headshot. Fleeing the battlefield? You bet that's a headshot. Considering that these officers tend to be outside of their regiment, feelings on them can
Somebody gets a gut shot, right, and bleeding slowly, suddenly hide it. What are you hiding there? Oh, nothing. You okay to fight? Yeah, I'm perfect. Takes out a gun. Yeah, you're all right, and puts it back. There you go. That's Astra Militarum.
can be mixed. And in fairness, certain commissars like the esteemed Ibram Gaunt or Caiaphas Cain tend to do a bit better with the whole people talking part. Because if, say, you were trying to tell a beefed up Catachan jungle fighter what to do, you might take a mysterious leave of absence inside a carnivorous plant. But no matter what I say, I don't think I can truly convey the sheer might of the Imperial Guard, so I'm gonna get a visual aid. Let's take a look at this image right here, right? This is the cover of the 9th edition Codex for the Astra Militarum, the official cover art. Your eyes may be drawn to the dark and brutal looks of some of the main members on the front and the gigantic orc they are attacking, but zoom out a little bit. There is no floor. There is only people, and behind those people are tanks, and behind those tanks are flying artillery shells. There are 2 enormous transport ships in the sky, and their ramps are down, and on their ramps are more people. The Imperium is described as having 1,000,000 worlds. 1,000,000 worlds. And each one of them gives soldiers to the Imperial Guard for the tithe. On a given battlefield, in a given fight, foot soldiers number in the millions, tanks in the tens of thousands, and you have enough artillery to turn the night sky day. You have walkers and APCs and aircraft and horse cavalry and tanks the size of apartment buildings. You have
Yeah, million, right? So million, that is 6 zeros. Multiplied by, let's just say, billions. So that would be three more. So billion, trillion, quadrillion. So that is at least quadrillion amount of humans in this million world. And I'm just counting like, okay, if there's 1 billion people in a planet, if there's 1,000,000 planet, so quadrillion or something more in quadrillion, that's what we're talking about. So yeah, that's the insane number.
drop troops and spec ops and rattling snipers and gigantic ogres that can't count to 4, but they can turn you into 4 pieces, and it just doesn't end. Humanity is a horde army, but instead of a horde of bugs or rampaging orcs, it's a living wall of guns. At the end of the day, though he's been ferried through hell on a ship that's 10,000 years old to some God-forsaken, war-torn rock. Though he deployed from high orbit with nothing but a grav chute, though he is one of 10 million men and women snatched from his homeworld to fight a war he barely understands, though he has been given a weapon that fires small suns and may annihilate him as he fires because the knowledge of how it functions has been lost, though his company is supported by tractor tanks that run on anything you can burn, though he wages war against the devouring hive mind, ravenous demons and hordes of hyper-advanced aliens with strange technologies and sorceries he never dreamed existed. No one will remember his sacrifice. There will be no records of his deeds, no glorious parades in his honor, and no remembrance of his name. All he will earn is a shallow, unmarked grave on a forgotten world untold light years from home. Yet for all this,
Maybe. If he's throwing suns implying nukes, I guess they have just nukes as a conventional weapon. Why the fuck not? If you get destroyed by nuke, atomizes, and if nobody even knows that he exists, he's not even gonna get a grave, is he? Because there are too many of them.
thankless sacrifice, a guardsman is a man, just like you. He has no millennia-old genetic engineering, no prophetic leader, no miracles of faith. He has his lasgun, his orders, and those beside him. He is the Imperial Guard, and he will hold the line. In the end, the Astra Militarum, despite fighting for the honor of the Imperium, are their own form of a massive horde army where individuality does not matter. They are merely numbers to the Imperium, and the vast majority of the conflicts they are sent to are attrition-based battles that gain virtually no ground while countless millions die. Yet this makes them the most human. For the Imperial Guard contains normal people, people who are happy and sad, people who laugh and love, and in there are stories. Because there is strength.
Yeah, the sad people are normal. People who are happy are psychopaths. Because that is the only thing that makes sense.
In facing the horrors of the universe head on with nothing but a rifle in your hands and a prayer on your lips. Armed with an innumerable amount of Imperial soldiers and Space Marines, the Navy begins its great crusade into the stars to rescue the stranded Primarchs and reunite them to their legions. But the biggest question needed to be asked was, what would they find? The age of strife lasted for thousands of years. If a civilization was still alive out there in the galaxy, what would they be like? The technological advancements of humanity prior to and during the Dark Age technology was unfathomable. It allowed them to spread through the galaxy with ease and allowed them to settle once inhospitable planets. These branches of humanity were provided with the vast knowledge of human creations and were given gigantic machines to make arduous labor and ease. The spreading of these massive colony ships was known as the Long March, and these ships would be retrofitted into settlements upon arrival to their new homes. Accompanying them were the gigantic pieces of farm equipment that served multiple purposes and the specialized pilots that could maintain them. They were not only able to tend the fields and do labor, but when interstellar communication was cut off, they also did a great job of protecting the colonists against both threats demonic and alien. Because of the significance of these machines, those that could pilot them were powerful enough to be considered leaders, and the upkeep and preservation of the machines and the lineage of those who could pilot them was imperative. These machines, over the thousands of years, would eventually be known as the... He must be humble of heart, strong of arm, be savage in war, loyal to hearth, and follow deeds of glory. He must keep honor with all, banish cowardice from his doings, and bring his house no shame. He must serve the emperor and defend the Imperium, thus should a knight rule himself. The Age of Strife caused these colonized worlds to be cut off from the Imperium, and the reversion of these worlds resulted in the reverence for this farm equipment turned feudal, and the leadership that controlled the devices became viewed as a noble hierarchy. During the Age of Strife, exploratory fleets from Mars found plenty of these worlds, and it seemed the majority of them reverted to a similar state. Like King Arthur seeing Merlin himself, these feudal worlds welcomed the tech priests of Mars with open arms. The mutual relationship between the Admech and the nobility was beneficial. The Admech were able to secure more worlds for mining resources and potentially long-lost STC information, and the noble houses were provided with technological know-how and modifications from the Admech themselves. The suits became more and more specialized, and their history as mere people.
Imagine Adamx like a fashion guy. You go to a shop, right, to buy a suit, and the guy just like, yeah, we can do something. I'm imagining that with Adamx. I can give you technology. I can remove your leg, remove your eye, remove your abdomen, and we can just make a lot of things better. What the fuck you just said? We just want machines, man. Ugh, fine, I'll give you machines. Well, I can do much better though. No. We just want machine.
Pieces of equipment were lost to time. What was once a tractor became a killdozer, and the Imperial Knights were born. Unlike other military aspects in the Imperium, the nobility of the Knight houses remains just that.
The killdozer guy, he wouldn't have ever imagined in a million years that after everything he does, he's gonna get mentioned by a Warhammer lore video. That's something.
A nobility-focused feudal hierarchy that swears fealty to either the Mechanicum or to Terra. Like the knights in our history, once they swear fealty, they can be called to aid their respective allegiance in the heat of battle. The ones that swear fealty to Terra are led by the High Monarch, while the ones with the Mechanicum are led by the Princeps. The ones with Terra might be sent directly to the front line of war, while the ones with the Mechanicum tend to be sent to protect the Forge world. And the heraldry of these houses is what you'd expect from a generic history of knights. Houses pledging allegiances here and there, your run-of-the-mill War of the Roses aesthetic. Except instead of ponies, you have gigantic death machines. These knights can't seem to be piloted by any old person, however. A member of the nobility of any given knight house must go through the ritual of becoming. This ritual involves them sitting on the device used to control the knight, known as the Throne Mechanicum, for a full night. What's wrong with that? I mean, sitting in a chair for a full evening sounds pretty great right about now. So a pilot cannot drive a knight. They can, but it moves about as effective as Ripley from Aliens 2, big, lifter thing. It is, in a sense, a beast that must be controlled, and a pilot must merge with it. The mind of the noble is connected to the machine and must fight with the mental signatures and personalities of the prior pilots as well. Everything a knight experiences in battle is felt by the pilot themselves, be it the general movement in the battlefield or damage sustained by the machine itself. If a knight's leg is blown off in battle, the pilot could experience a broken bone in the same spot. The merging to the machine forever changes the mentality of the noble that experiences it. This connect.
What's wrong with the steering? Some pedals? What's wrong with that shit? Why do you got to blow my legs, man? Come on.
Reinforces a strong degree of nobility and honor in the pilot, and a desire to fight for the glory of their house until the bitter end, as their ancestors' minds are linked directly to the knight. The size of these knights can vary, but generally speaking, they stand in the ballpark of 30 to 50 feet tall and are protected by a thick adamantium armor. Beyond that, they have their own unique ion shield generators that give them added protection, and when it comes to their looks, the most common pattern across the Imperium is the Questoris pattern, and is honestly the one you're probably thinking about right now. But there are also smaller versions like Armigers and bigger ones known as the Dominus. As for a loadout, these guys are essentially a violent Mr. Potato Head. Battle cannons, Gatling cannons, heavy flamers, thermal cannons, up close and personal, how about a gigantic chainsword or a straight up gauntlet? And for that empty spot up top, screw it. More autocannons, maybe add some missiles. Whatever you can do to make it as over the top as possible, you gotta do it. A squire serves a knight serves a lord serves a baron, and a baron serves a monarch. So who does the monarch serve? He serves every subject, from the rudest serf to the members of the court. Chivalric fealty, when ideally practiced, is not a pyramid, but a circle. Ironically, on the surface, night worlds themselves are one of the least grim, dark settings in the galaxy. Reverting to an ancient time with knights and peasants is almost an escapism from the techno hell of the modern Imperium. But this, of course, doesn't make it great for everyone.
Yeah, it's basically if the nuclear fallout happens, these villages and like less technical places will be the one who's saved, because why would you nuke that? This is similar shit. Wars happen in like most technically advanced and like populous places than this, so kind of makes sense.
It sounds fun on paper to play a game of knights, but it's not so fun when you're the peasant of that world. For the knights themselves, the knights give their entire lives to the Throne Mechanicum, and their reality is not their own, as they have to hear the voices of thousands of generations of their ancestors controlling their actions and their lives for as long as they live. It's a strange dichotomy. When it comes to Warhammer, most to all jobs tend to be terrible. However, if there was one that could be considered enjoyable, it would be the pilot of a knight, or a prince princeps of their larger cousins. While it does contain an egregious
That's
amount of
enjoyable.
hardship to be a night pilot, you do enjoy a wealth of privilege. A night pilot is often an asshole who can back it up. The rich noble that, despite his braggadocious behavior, is still very much him, and he will continue to be him. But knights are not the only thing that the Imperium found lost in the stars during their Great Crusade. Due to the circumstances of the Age of Strife, humans were changing and adapting to their new homes they were now isolated on. Some of these humans evolved over thousands of years to adapt to these areas, and they were known as abhumans. Many abhumans found their way into the Imperial Guard or other lesser positions in the Imperium if they were not wiped out immediately for being too different from their human counterparts. But their abilities and appearance vary from planet to planet, and one particular group of abhumans have made quite a name for themselves in the center of the galaxy.
Okay, what? He's gonna explain that in less than 5 or so minutes? Okay. Leagues of Wotan. Wotan, aka the Kin.
The origins of what will be known as the Kin start at some point during the Dark Age technology, where their ancestors left a planet that is very much Terra and went to the galactic core to mine it of its resources. They brought along with them everything that they would need for a long-term stay, most important of which were the incredible AI-based supercomputers. Be it guidance, technical or philosophical, schematics, or the ability to upload the memories of a deceased explorer to gather information from them, these computers became an essential part of their everyday life, especially considering that the galactic core is one of the most inhospitable places in the galaxy. It is an exceptionally star-dense location, full of abnormalities, black holes, and sentient hostile nebula. Whatever that last part means, it is not a safe and easy place to make a living, and this only got worse thanks to the warp storms during the Age of Strife. In order to adapt to this area, these travelers perfected a genetic makeup that made their future clones to be more adept to the area. These future clones would be shorter and more robust than their ancestors, and the need to procreate would be unnecessary because why risk messing up a good employee when you can just make a new one? These would be known as the squats, and they would all die, except for when they didn't. And now they are known by a different name. Most void-faring races have at least one cautionary tale of foolish explorers vanishing amidst its blazing stellar nurseries and strange anomalies. Yet for the leagues of Wotan, the galactic core has been home now for millennia. These squat humanoids would begin to establish themselves in the core, and their goals would be the same as their ancestors. Rock and stone! But like, actually kinda, yeah. Whenever one of them would die, they would know that that sucker would need to be uploaded to the machines like their forefathers did. But the original purpose of these machines was lost to time. What was once a technical resource for them turned into a ritual known as joining the ancestors. And
The lost to time shit is so strong in Warhammer. Even here, like, okay, why are we doing that? Like, we don't know. It's a ritual now. Okay.
the fact that they
Sometimes
were
it feels like a ticking time bomb.
clones at this point meant that the same copy of the same individual would be uploaded countlessly. The sheer overuse of these computers and the repeated uploading of redundant data has turned these once powerful supercomputers into your parents' computer after you installed LimeWire on it, and whose 50 Google Chrome tabs definitely contain information they will return to one day. So much corruption
They need to defrag, man. That's what they need to do. They need to defrag their supercomputer.
that these computers began to develop the makings of a personality of their own. These would be known as the Voton, and the Kin, this dwarf-like abhuman of humanity, would revere them. The Voton still operate to this day, but the volume of corruption have made anything outside of their very basic functions highly unpredictable. They may not answer a question for centuries at a time, and if they do provide an answer or data, it has become so corrupted and so incongruent that it takes a literal Kin wizard to comprehend it. The Kin, much like the dwarves of fantasy, exist nowadays as
Yeah, I'm gonna guess that Kin Wizard just wings it. Because of the corrupted data, like, you can't really know what the fuck they're talking about, and then like Wizard comes in like, I'm pretty sure it's this one because I feel it, fuck it.
a mercantile species that constantly work to mine and manufacture. However, their capitalistic desires are dangerous. The biggest crimes a Kin can face are being lazy, unproductive, and breaking a contract. Stellar conflicts have broken out over hundreds of years due to the breaking of a deal. So if you signed a contract with a Kin, you best stick to it. Because of this, the kin have been known to interact with other species in a fairly common manner. This includes humanity, who have met various members of the kin multiple times but constantly considered them to be all a different species. Famously, the Imperium noted that the kin they referred to as the Squats were their own species and were wiped out by the Tyranids. Little did they know, they were still around. The kin are acutely aware of two things. The first is that the humans of the Imperium are deeply terrified of technology, so the sheer existence of the Voton is a secret as well as the truth. This extends also to the Iron kin, sentient robots that are treated in the same esteem of flesh and blood kin because kin is kin. The second thing they are aware of is where they're from. They are fairly confident that they are from Terra, and they know that if this secret was to be known by the Imperium, that the Imperium might want to take ownership of them and everything they've built. So the more alien they are, the better. Now, this sounds fine.
Not to mention they would destroy this supercomputer Wotan because that's fucking heresy. That's what that is.
And good, right? What could possibly be wrong with these guys besides the hyper late stage space capitalism? Well, we have to go back to their creation. The kin are an entirely clone-based race made from the computers that are exceptionally difficult to recreate. These machines, the Voton, are becoming more and more unpredictable and derelict. If anything were to happen to these machines, it would be a twofold ending of the kin. New kin cannot be reproduced, reducing their numbers, and the existing kin would have no further purpose because the end that awaits them would be non-existent. The horror of the kin civilization.
I think Imperium can find a use for them. That's for damn sure. It's not the use they'll like, but okay.
Is that the entire purpose of their lives is to do the best they can at their duty and upload all they know to the Voton, their ancestor cores, join their ancestors. But doing so is actually the thing that is killing these supercomputers in the first place. The ancestors were dead, but through the first truths.
Yeah, basically it's like a quicksand. You're stuck in a quicksand. Okay, you need to move, but that is also sinking you faster, faster. But you can't just stand there. You're gonna die because nobody's around. This is that situation. They have to upload, like that is their purpose. The more they upload, they're fucking that up. But what else are they gonna do?
Their legacy continued, and though their eyes had shut long ago, indeed the ancestors were watching, not with a gaze from eons gone, but with the eyes of every living kin. Each generation was the embodiment of the ancestors cast anew by the Voton. The galaxy changed. Stars died, planets were destroyed, and civilizations fell. But as long as the Voton endured, the ancestors still lived. I do want to end this last bit with an enjoyable quote from one Kim. As you may have assumed, the Leagues of Voton are space dwarves with a corporate sci-fi motif, but they are still very much dwarves. They're squat, they're strong as hell, and they hold serious grudges. This time it's just more about your contracts than anything else. And so because of this, they might treat most things about how you would expect a capitalistic dwarf would treat things. You misunderstand, human. I am not here to debate. I am not here to compromise. What you see as yours, I am taking for my kindred. You want to bargain? Torek, unholster our means of negotiation. As the Great Crusade continued, humanity would find their missing Primarchs, reestablish the locations of all of their various worlds, and finally reclaim what the Emperor was always hoping for. But eventually, all the Emperor sought to build would be his undoing. His original attempt to have all of the Primarchs lead his great armies and usher humanity into the better ages would end up crumbling down. And we will learn about how the Imperium backslides and the horror of the modern day of 40k in part 2. I will see you very soon. Thank you so much for watching.
Yeah, man, can't wait for number 2 with the, Orosaurus. I want this series to be big enough because there are many other smaller species and there are this cabal, right? Like this Illuminati little cabal and all that shit. I want to learn about more of that in detail. So I hope he just keeps doing that and it just doesn't just gloss over just the main thing. Oh, by the way, this is Orosaurus. Who else is remaining? Like this is that. Nah, I want more details this time. It would be so fucking fun. Like, talk about all those smaller things, right? That would be so good. But yeah, there you go. Alright, well, that was every single Warhammer 40k faction re-explained. If you haven't seen first 2 parts, like, I guess it'll be weird to now, but I'll link down, the link to it or whatever. And yeah, I'll see you next time.